Hey guys, so today I'm here with Esther from Fouchematic, and you also have your own channel now that's Esther Emery.
That's right. Mostly I'm on the Fouchematic one though.
Yeah, and so it's small living, it's purposeful living, it's mountain living, basic self-care skills. I guess I like to just call them self-care skills, as far as like using your hands for everything that you can use them for to support yourself, and having kind of that purposeful interaction with your own life.
The DIY lifestyle.
The DIY lifestyle, I think, is a very basic way to live, and we are surrounded by self-reliant life and wonderful animals that help with that. So bear with us for the orchestra of beautiful noises. We're here outside Esther's yurt today. She doesn't live in it now, but they did live in it for
3 years.
3 years. And before that,
well, we were in Boston before that, living a kind of ordinary suburban life. And we wanted to move out to the woods, and we were looking for adventure, and we were looking to really test our limits. So our early time off-grid in the mountains was pretty primitive living, and we actually took that pendulum a little too far one way, and now we've swung quite a bit the other direction in terms of having certain basic comforts as well as the sense of adventure and independence. But this yurt where we lived for our first 3 years, it was our intention to have a very simple lifestyle and very much connected to nature. So these canvas walls, you can hear sounds right through them. We had our chickens right next to us and our goats right across the way. You can hear the crickets, you can hear the frogs, you can hear the birds. It almost feels like you're a part of the landscape rather than removed from it. And that was one of my favorite things about living in our yurt.
now Esther has chronicled her journeys. She has her blog, but she also just wrote a book. It's called What Falls from the Sky, and I highly recommend it as someone who isn't living off grid, but I do feel at times, even though we're an intentional living family, we have a little homestead, we try to feed ourselves as much as possible. We had kind of felt like the world was creeping in, and I felt like Esther's book was very timely for our day and age. And so if you're interested in the simpler living and more of like the philosophy behind why you came here.
Yeah, it's a lot of story and ideas, and actually the spiritual aspect of that. What Falls from the Sky tells the story of us leaving Boston. So it isn't necessarily about the self-reliant lifestyle, it's about what drives a person to that. At what point do you realize that you want a different kind of life, and what are the crises and the discoveries that lead a person to that? So I actually dropped completely off the internet, feeling like I had too much noise in my life, like my priorities weren't set correctly, there was too much distance in my family, I wasn't living the life I wanted to live. So the first drastic move that I took was to drop off the internet. What Falls from the Sky tells that story, and also you can see how that led us into another version of the same action, to just take purposeful, intentional steps to live the life we really want to live, instead of being kind of dragged along by culture into this life that we never really chose for ourselves.
I think that's a good way to put it, is sometimes you wake up and you're just like, how did I get here, and how do I get out? And so
yes, exactly.
And it starts with your mentality. It's kind of, I think it starts with your spirituality, whatever spirituality you have, that craving to reconnect with the spiritual. So Esther has this amazing progression. And even here you can see the progression of like the yurt and the new house and what they're doing right now, that trying to still have balance in their life. So their channel is Fouchematic, and we're going to walk through the yurt real quick and talk about the pros and cons of living in a round space, the pros and cons of living in a mountainous terrain where, like, you can see the wood stove behind us. I don't know if you can see it, but that's their summer kitchen.
And you can also see that the pipe is down. The chimney is down right now because we had so much snow this winter. We needed to pull it down because it was going to cave in. But that chimney goes up through the roof when we have this actually functioning, and I can use this to can in the summertime. But it was our entire kitchen for 3 years. This was where we did everything, right here on our porch.
And you had a desire to be like out of debt. I remember reading in your book where you're talking about, we're going to be debt free. How can we do this? How can we save money? How can we put money away? And so your goal to do this was, let's be debt free. Let's this burden, the slavery that we're in. And so that's one of the other really important aspects I want to talk about, is that it's plush, it's beautiful, but you did it over a period of time not in a huge rush. And so I'm going to get behind the camera now, and we're going to follow Esther. And if you want to talk about your process and why you put things where you put them, and
Sure.
and the function that they serve.
Sure. So we built this yurt for $2,000 total. And it was a space that housed our family for 3 years. And that was a lot of what we were trying to accomplish by moving out here. We had never owned a home before, so we had no equity to exchange. We had just barely paid off our student loan debt and blew everything else we had to buy the land. So we came out here wanting to work as little as possible and with essentially no capital. And we wanted to find a way to find our limits in terms of what we were capable of, how simple could we live, how much could we pare down to what really mattered so that we could have a joyful life without having this sense of debt and burden and struggle. And of course, you can't get rid of the struggle completely, but being able to build this home out of reclaimed materials, pretty simple, pretty primitive, pretty bare bones, it allowed our family to make a kind of explosion from people who were renters and probably would have been renters our entire life to this situation where we own our own land. This belongs to us. We have a little more freedom and a little more self-determination. So come on in, let me show you the inside. It's set up right now for guests. So it was a little different with 5 people living in here. So with the kids in here, we had Nick and I sleeping in this double bed, and then we had the bunk beds right there. So one thing that this space does not provide clearly is privacy, and anybody who's done tiny living knows all the complexities of that. It's maybe not as bad as people think, but it certainly is a pain. It certainly is an issue. So that is one major reason why we did build a home. The other reason why we moved out of the yurt has to do with the cold weather, insulation, and efficiency of heating. So we heated for 3 years with this little tiny stove. We just paid a couple $100s for it, used clearly. It's basically an antique. And that, because of that, and because of having only moderate insulation in the walls here, we went through 5 or 6 cords of wood in a winter. And that's also counting our cooking stove. But that's a lot of wood and a huge job to be able to maintain that year after year. So we have a much more efficient situation now in a cabin with better insulation. But it isn't necessarily the yurt that caused that problem, because we're actually going to be installing a rocket mass heater in this yurt this fall. And I think we're going to be doing a workshop to invite some people to help us with that. We think that this same space, this same setup with a rocket mass heater could have the same kind of fuel and heating efficiency that we now enjoy in the cabin. And that's just a learning curve. That's just a matter of realizing what will work to heat your space. This is why I think about moving back here. I did not miss the yurt at all my first winter up in the cabin, but now that spring is here, now that there's those good smells in the air, we've got fresh wood chips outside, right outside these windows, I do miss the yurt, and I do think about moving back when it's just the 2 of us, and maybe we can give the cabin to one of our kids in time for them to raise children or rent it out to someone. I do think that for a couple of people, or even just one person, a 20-foot diameter yurt is a perfect solution. If you don't have the privacy issue, if you're not too crowded, it helps you to simplify your life. It has a nice feeling. The round space has a nice feeling to it that you really can't duplicate. There's no wasted space. The heat feels conserved because there aren't any cold corners. So if we had solved the problem of just the sheer number of people, and we solved the problem of efficient heating, I'd be back down here in a heartbeat. So do you want to hear about the solar power? Our first 2 years living off the grid, we really lived entirely primitively off the grid. We had no solar power. We had an old generator which ran Nick's tools, but we didn't use a generator for anything in our lives. So at that point I was washing my laundry with the bike-powered washer, which maybe I can show you, or we can link up to an old video of that. We only had candlelight and our rechargeable headlamps. We actually had to go to bed when it got dark outside. And we really couldn't do much in the wintertime in the evenings other than just sit in front of the fire, which I don't want to repeat that because in some ways it was grueling and it really took everything I had just to survive like that. But I'm so grateful that I had the experience. I think it was incredibly healing to my marriage and my family. I think it brought us very close together, taught me how to kind of survive that experience of silence, being able to be still and be okay with that. It really allowed me to unlearn all these attitudes of the contemporary age that you aren't of any value unless you're creating something. You need to be running all the time and showing yourself on social media or you don't even exist. Those first couple years where I didn't have any power at all, it was hard living, but I wouldn't trade those years for the world. But at the end of 2 years, we installed solar power and it was the best choice at that time. And I'm really grateful for that now because it's given us the ability to earn income from our property, which is a game changer in terms of how much comfort we can have. We have 4 solar panels. The whole system cost $1,000. And we have 2 batteries in a box under here. Just 2 automotive batteries. Here. And we have a charger so that we can charge up the batteries with our generator if there isn't enough solar power. And we have an inverter, and we're able to just charge all of our devices. And during the summertime, we never run out of power. There's about 3 months, December, January, February, right around there, where we do miss, we do have to use the generator to top off our batteries, or we don't have the ability to maintain what we've been doing all summer. So again, this is a wide spectrum and you can land anywhere on the spectrum. It's completely possible to go without any electricity at all. Or you may have things that you want to run, in which case you have to realize that it's going to be different at different times of year. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, that your summertime load is going to accustom you or allow you to become accustomed to a certain level of electric power, and then in the wintertime it'll be less, and you have to decide whether you're going to adjust or use a generator to support that. And at the moment we are using the generator. One thing about our yurt with moderate insulation, it's not insulated, but it doesn't have a lot of insulation, is that it gets very hot in the summertime. So we have this fan in the roof, which is directly attached to a solar panel, and we just have a switch that we can turn it on and off. So in the summertime, if it's warm enough or if there's enough sunlight to run that fan, then it cools us off and keeps the yurt nice and cool during the summertime. We couldn't afford to have a whole big system put in, so we did this all ourselves. It's 4 solar panels connected in parallel to make a 12-volt system with, like I said, 2 batteries for storage. So in the winter time, we're limited by our sun. In the summertime, we're limited by that storage, by those just 2 batteries. But it really has served us, and I'm so glad that we went ahead and made the move to get a small system rather than waiting and dreaming to spend thousands and thousands of dollars, which may not have been right for our lifestyle anyway. So this definitely has been a win for us. This is the kind of wood that we find when we process slash. So if anybody has seen our videos of how we use the chipper, and then we have a dedicated chop saw that we use to cut things that are too big to go in the chipper, that's what these are. They actually fuel our rocket mass heater for the house. They will fuel our rocket mass heater here once we have it installed in the yurt. They're also perfect for our cooking stove. So let me show you that. This isn't set up right now because we had such a snowy winter. There was a huge snow load, and so we took this apart. We haven't been using it because we have our winter kitchen up in the house. But I cooked for 3 years almost entirely on this stove. We also kept a propane burner for things like boiling water, especially boiling water for showers and baths. But this, I baked my bread in here, and it likes those little pieces of wood. It likes the thin pieces of wood. And the only real thing about it is that you have to plan ahead when you want to cook. You have to be able to start that fire at the right time so that you're going to be able to prepare your food. Otherwise it can get very frustrating to have to wait that extra half an hour And there's nothing more frustrating than putting food on to cook when your burner isn't hot enough. So a little planning goes a long way when you're cooking on wood. We do have running water. It only stumped us for a short period of time. We're fortunate to have our own water here on the property. There's a natural spring, and the natural spring is at the very top corner of the property. So we were able to use a gravity-fed system to bring water down to the yurt. We do have a hot water heater here, which is run by propane, but it takes very little propane. It's actually very efficient. So we're able to have cold water and hot water right here in the sink. The only problem with this system is that we did not dig in our line all the way from the spring. We would have had to dig a trench to bury the line in order to keep it from freezing in the wintertime. So all 3 winters that we lived down here, we carried water in jugs, which is doable, but maybe not a long-term lifetime solution for having your running water. Every bit of the water that we use here for our sink and for our shower and for our washing machine goes right onto plants, especially onto fruit trees. And then I have some herbs right here. It's early in the season, so you can't see much. But all of our water has to be gray water safe. It has to be safe for the plants. And for that reason, I really can't use commercial soaps, commercial shampoos. Most of those things have chemicals in them which will kill the plants. Even the DIY laundry soap, for example, that has borax in it is not something that we can use. I do sometimes get some soap from my friends, but often I just have to spring for this Dr. Bronner's soap, which really is the best for us. It takes care of all of our cleaning needs and personal hygiene needs. We make our shampoo from it. I use it to wash my face. So it really is a multi-purpose thing for us, and it is safe for the plants, allows us to reuse all of that water to grow more food. We do have a little bit of garden back here. It hasn't gotten much attention this year since I live now up at the house, but we've got some herbs, my kale and my strawberries. And for 3 years, we went to this outhouse out here to go to the bathroom, which was kind of a long walk, although also it worked fine. And you can tell we haven't been down here because the snow load from this last year brought down some branches right on top of my bike-powered washer. So I can't pretend I've been using it. I totally haven't. I haven't been down here since last year. But we did laundry on that bike-powered washer when we lived down in the yurt. And then you can also see straight down here our shower, which is also gravity-fed, the same system as the sink, hot water on demand, and a beautiful view while you shower. Well, thanks for taking a tour of my off-grid yurt today. I appreciate having you along. If you are interested in taking the leap to move off-grid or to just change your lifestyle, I strongly encourage you. It has been mostly good for us all the way along, and the challenges have definitely been challenging. But they've also given us a life that we can be proud of, that we feel like we're living every moment and not missing out on the moments of our lives. So thanks for hanging out with us today. My channel is Fouch-O-Matic Off-Grid. If you come over there, you can see weekly updates on my husband's building projects, as well as just the day-to-day life of off-grid living. I'll see you next time.